Welcome to my lesson sharing session from Deuteronomy 24 to 27, aka Moses's final speech to the Israelites just before they entered into the promised land. Now, my first lesson, the first thing that struck out to me was that divorce was widespread, even in the Old Testament times. And the laws given in the first part of chapter 24 simply give information about it. That's divorce and remarriage, but it didn't necessarily legislate the matter, which is why I believe that even till date, the matter of divorce is still something that's like a gray area, because there's so many instances, that the Bible doesn't even cover explicitly. So to be able to just, draw inferences from chapters like these that you read will be very difficult. And as we've already noticed, the laws were given to protect and provide for the poor, the fatherless, the widows, and the foreigners. They compelled the Israelites to show mercy and kindness to those in need, reflecting God's heart towards them. Now, I've read this thing so many times that right now I believe that it's something that could possibly be a moral law where, not possibly, it's definitely a moral law, where God requires for us to always look after the downtrodden of society or the people that are in need. Now, there was a section about levirate marriages. And yes, no, levirate doesn't mean Levi. Marriages of Levites. It actually comes from a word that means like brother-in-law. So those are the marriages where when someone dies without a son, his brother is obliged to marry his wife. Sounds familiar? Exactly. That was what happened with Judah's sons and Tamar, if you remember the story of Tamar, who ended up having children by her father-in-law because this law wasn't sort of obeyed. So in cases of levirate marriage, humiliation and disgrace for the brother who refused to marry his deceased brother's wife was basically because he was shirking responsibility. The responsibility was for him to step up. But if you remember the laws, if he didn't want to, he would tell the elders, and then the lady had to take his sandal and spit on him, and then he was to be known as the guy who didn't step up to the plate. And one of the reasons why this would probably happen would probably be because of selfishness, which was kind of evident in another case. I don't think it was the case I think it was in Ruth's case exactly, when Ruth's husband died and the brother didn't, because the fact is, whatever son or heir comes from the wife would inherit the brother's property and not the brother. So if the brother was a selfish person, like how Ruth's, I think it was the second brother, the one who refused to give her a child, but instead wanted to, we'll get to the story, let it not be a spoiler, but for those who haven't read it, we'll be getting to the story of Ruth very soon, and I find that I'm mentioning Ruth quite a lot. Don't worry, we'll get there. So basically, the person deserves such harsh punishment because, the motivation would probably have been selfishness. The Israelites were to be honest in their business dealings. Disobedience of this was serious because it showed a lack of faith in God to provide. And this was a lesson I gleaned from the past, where they said that they must have no dishonest weights in their house. Whatever things that you used to transact business had to be on. So basically, they were called to just always make sure that their business dealings were above board. Because if you try to cut corners, it shows, and that's one thing that struck out to me truly, because really cutting corners, some people just think is being smart. But here is showing that you don't have faith in God to be able to provide, so you want to provide for yourself. The Israelites were strictly forbidden from doing that. Israel was special to God, not because of anything that they'd done, but because God chose them. The Israelites were commanded to write down all the laws on large whitewashed stones, and the whitewash was making it very visible to read upon entering into the promised land. The tribes were divided into 6 by order, while to pronounce this was the final part, the curse and the blessings. So there were 2 mountains, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, and they were facing each other, Mount Gerizim on the right, Mount Ebal on the left, and the tribes were divided into half, 6 on the first 6 on Gerizim and the last 6 on Ebal, and the Levites would be there pronouncing in a loud voice the blessings that the Israelites would have if they obeyed God. So whatever they said, all of them had to say amen to it. And Mount Ebal was where the Lord first appeared to Abraham and gave him the promise, and where he first built the altar. So now we've stopped in a place between this part. So chapter 27 ended with the curses. So tomorrow we'll continue with the blessings from chapter 28. But before then, let me share the lesson that I learned about God. God treasures Israel and has put his name on them. Like I said before, they were his chosen people, not because of anything that they did, but because he had chosen them. Now we are owned by God. We are God's special people too. We are chosen by him, his possession, and our adoption into his family is complete through Jesus Christ. So all these blessings and curses, I believe also that we inadvertently inherit or are subject to, depending on our obedience or disobedience. So thank you for joining me today. Tomorrow we'll continue with these lessons. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.